Hey, what's up, you guys? How you doing today? Listen, there is even more groundbreaking stuff coming out of the David and Celeste Rivous Hernandez case. Sit down. The police have confirmed to independent media, People Magazine, also TMZ sources, and you know they are deep in the LAPD, have confirmed that there is an accomplice, and that accomplice was with David before, after, and maybe even during Celeste Hernandez's death. They're also circling in on that Santa Barbara trip. But there's even more, okay? Did you know what the big news is, okay? Now, first of all, let's talk about all the breaking news. Celeste's assigned medical examiner case number, it's 2025-14252, has changed from deferred status to an empty field. I repeat, it is changed from a deferred status to an empty field. Now, you might be asking yourselves, why would they keep it empty? Okay? It's likely that LAPD, or at least the coroner, has put a security hold on the medical examiner's determinations to protect the investigation. I repeat, her autopsy is back. We know what did her in. The police, it boggles my mind. I know the police just can't go in like Barney Rubble and arrest people, but I will never stop saying I've never seen this much evidence outside of in a detective movie on a big screen where it is screaming that guy over there either did it or he knows what did it. Again, in my last video, I let leak that the police were playing coy, and they finally admitted that they never, ever, ever have questioned David. Never, not once. In what world do you live in that a dead body is found in your vehicle that you still have the registration for, okay? And you literally don't even get questioned? I guess. I'd like to know whose David's connections are. Maybe they were fans. I really don't know. But let's get back into this medical exam report. Walk back over here. We need to talk about that. Why are they protecting the investigation? Because even though the police sources have been saying for a while, what's the big deal? We think it's an OD. We don't think it's a big deal. It looks like the medical report came back and it was an OD. And it is a big deal. The fact that there is a security hold on it lets them know that they don't want the TikTok detectives getting a hold of the information. Even though I will say the TikTok detectives solved this case before the LAPD even thought to question David. They should be opening this up for the TikTok detectives so they can actually, and the YouTube detectives, so we can all get busy, get to work, and actually break this case wide open. Okay, so let's get to the third revelation that came out of this David case. Big revelation number 3, okay? People close to this are saying that they believe that this was not a crime of passion, which means, the psycho killed her while he was upset. They believe this was actually planned out. Hear me out on this, okay? A lot of criminal experts are actually coming to the same conclusion. When you talk about the way the body was mutilated, okay? Decapitated, only a torso, but the limbs have been cut up over and over and over again. They're saying that someone and frozen. They're saying that, oh, by the way, if you didn't know, they believe that she was frozen and that her body was defrosting in the car, okay? They're saying that this is somebody that had researched it into the way to make somebody unidentifiable. What would make it extremely hard for an autopsy to even tell? Don't forget, they said when they found her, they didn't even know whether she was male or female. That's how mutilated. It was horrible, it was disgusting, but people are saying it wasn't an accident. Several people believe that if David has not done this before, he would have done it again. And that the police need to take off a baby serial killer off of the streets. Now, we will actually see, and they also think that might be why they're taking so long to close in on David. They have enough to close in on David because they have questions, which leads us to the fourth revelation. What are those questions? Were there other victims? Is this the first time he has done this? They're saying that whoever did this, and it looks like it's David, did it with such surgical precision and such surgical things. Let's not forget, if her mom had not called in, they never would have known that it was Celeste. She was too young to have dental records. She didn't have any DNA. She was a child. If it had just been in a random abandoned car, there would have been nothing linking her to her family, no way to put in DNA evidence. It would have been what it is. They're asking, are there other victims? People said that the police took so long, revelation number 4, to arrest David because they were casting a wide net to see, has he done this before? Has he done anything like this before? Are there other victims, or was Celeste the first? But judging by the way he went about this, it doesn't look like she would be the last. Okay, let's get to revelation. Let's get to revelation number 5. That has come out in the David case. And this one is pretty shocking, okay? There are gag orders put in place on the private investigator, Stephen Fisher, that was hired by, he works for the mansion owner where David lived. Don't forget, he had a rental in Hollywood Hills at the time of Celeste's death, okay? Now, a lot of people think this shows that this is clear movement on the case, but it does raise some interesting questions. Who could put a gag order? Stephen Fisher himself, I believe, said he was under a gag order. Now, let's be real. Stephen Fisher, the private investigator, has a critics that don't like the way he operates, doesn't like the way he moves. He was the one that broke the story that he found farm tools in David's house that could be used to do horrible things. Farm tools was the term he used. Now, this does connect with the farm tools to the police saying that David was in Santa Barbara in early hours, 4 hours, and they believe at that time somebody was with them, helping him do something, okay? They believe that somebody was with him helping him do something. But let's get back to the gag order, all right? Because what does that mean, the gag order? What does that mean? It means that Stephen Fisher either has information that they do not want disclosed to the general public. Why? Because they still have not made an arrest. The gag order does signal that there is movement on the case. Now, why haven't they made an arrest? Well, let's go into the revelation number 4. Go back to revelation number 4. Because there are accomplices, and because they want to know just how deep this sick, twisted tunnel actually goes, okay? Let's also not forget the revelation number 6, which is the saddest, most horrible revelation. The fact that Celeste's body was actually frozen. They are saying that it is virtually impossible that David dismembered Celeste on his own, or could have physically put her in the trunk without dismembering her body. Now, what does that mean? First of all, let's look at logistics. Tesla front trucks are very small. Celeste is very small, but there's no way that she could have been put in there without her actually being dismembered. On top of that, David is 3 apples high and 90 pounds soaking wet, okay? People make jokes about him dating an 11, 12-year-old because he's built like a 13-year-old boy that hasn't hit puberty. And I don't say that in any way to make light of an alleged predator for what he allegedly did to Celeste, okay? However, it is pointing to the fact that you couldn't have done all this on your own. The fact that there was no blood anywhere. The fact that there was no blood in his house. The fact that there is virtually no evidence linking him, besides the obvious evidence, but I mean like forensic evidence. It shows that this was cold, it was calculated, it was planned out. It was a finely tuned dance that he would need somebody to join him to actually make this go off without a hitch. Again, David might have done his own research. He's very much into gore, porn, and all this other stuff, but they're expecting multiple people to be charged. When the charges come, let's go back to Revelation, I think it was number 3, they expect charges within days, not weeks, okay? There is significant movement. And let's look at the 7th revelation. Why didn't David get away with this? Because at the end of the day, thank goodness, Celeste, throughout her troubled childhood, throughout her troubled prepubescent years, okay, she always kept some link to her family. People are saying that David's error is the fact that he did not know everything Celeste was doing. See, here's the thing, and think about this. David put Celeste frozen, cut her up in a way that would make autopsies virtually impossible, signaling that he researched this and this was very, very planned out. Celeste had been separated from her family for a while. People are saying that David assumed that Celeste had no contact with her family because David was telling her not to have contact with her family. And you see that she has a very complicated, troubled history with her family. However, she is still a young girl. And when tensions fade, and when she was lonely or with everything, she kept in touch with members of her family, sporadically, but enough, and she kept in touch with her older cousin. And by older, her older cousin was a teen herself, 16 or 17. She kept in touch. They're saying that Stephen Fisher got that detail wrong. That older cousin wasn't helping David. The family knew that she was in touch with Celeste. And their relationship was so contemptuous that they encouraged her to keep the relationship with Celeste going so that they could always at least know that she was at least safe, healthy, and being cared for. Again, desperate times call for desperate measures. They reported her missing 2 times. The police wouldn't bring her back. They felt like their hands were tied. That cousin was a lifeline. She told the family everything she knew. And the family used her as a way to keep in touch with Celeste. I don't think David knew that. At least this is what people close to the case are actually saying, that David did not know that. So David didn't know that Celeste had been sporadically, but still there was a regularity to the sporadic nature, in touch with her family. And when communication went dead cold, they grew worried. They grew concerned. Because even though David thought that Celeste hadn't been talking to her family in over a year or 2 years, the family was like, something's wrong. Yeah, she doesn't talk to us every day, but it's been like 3 or 4 months. We haven't been able to get in touch with her. Where is she? Where is she? Where is she? And that's when they started furiously looking, because the family knew something was wrong, that there was a difference between hardly any communication and no communication at all. And that's what David didn't count on. And they didn't. And David was telling Celeste, don't tell them too much about me. They'll keep us apart. He assumed that that little girl was actually being quiet. And thank God that little girl had the foresight to say no. And quietly, okay, sneak around him and communicate with her family and certain friends. And if she hadn't done that, when that body was found, they wouldn't have known. They wouldn't have known. Let's not forget that the reason they even got the DNA test is because the mother tearfully called TMZ and said, I think that's my daughter. His name was David. They lived in the Hollywood Hills. Again, she had shared just enough information that they could piece it all together. And while the mom prayed that wasn't the case, well, we all know what happened. In any case, you guys, listen, these are the top 7 moving revelations in the David case. Let me know. Well, actually, I'm going to be going live tomorrow to talk about all this. I invite you guys to call in and give your theories. We'll be in the chat talking. I'll see if I can get Lauren Conlon on the phone. But yeah, this case is finally looking like Celeste is going to get justice. Anyway, you guys, let me know what you think in the comments. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.